Any man wey fit to pay me for 24 hours non-stop will marry me.
I go pepper your pecus today.
I said 24 hours, oh.
In the days when the land still listened to human footsteps, and the forest remembered every promise made beneath its trees, there lived a woman called Nelma. She was known across Umuagu not merely for her beauty, because beauty was common, but for the strange favor that followed her like a loyal shadow. Wherever Nelma passed, fortune seemed to awaken. Farms yielded more than expected. Traders returned from journeys smiling, and even the hopeless found sudden openings in their lives after crossing her path. People spoke quietly about it, for such things were not discussed loudly. They said Nelma carried wealth in her destiny. They said any man who married her would never know hunger. Yet, despite all this, Nelma remained unmarried. Men came in numbers. They came with gifts, with pride, with promises. They came with cows, goats, money, titles, and stories of battles fought and victories won. Nelma turned them all away, not with anger, not with mockery, but with a calm finality that unsettled them. Then, one market day, when the village square was full and the sun stood high as if it too wanted to hear her words, Nelma spoke. She said she would marry only the man who could endure her ope for a full 24 hours, day and night, without breaking, without surrender, without letting pride lead him. She said this calmly, without laughter, without apology. The square went silent. Some men laughed at first, thinking it a joke. Others felt their chests swell with challenge. How could a woman speak so boldly? How could endurance outweigh strength? Nelma added only one thing. No man should come with arrogance, because arrogance would fail first. The first man to answer her challenge was Nnamdi, the strongest man in Umuagu. His strength was not debated, it was accepted as fact. He lifted what others could not. He walked with the confidence of a man who had never met resistance he could not crush. When he heard in Nelma's words, he laughed loudly and told the people that strength had not lost its meaning. He entered her compound with confidence written on his body. Hours passed. At first, the village waited expectantly. By the 5th hour, whispers began. By the 7th, the gate opened, and what emerged silenced everyone. Nnamdi crawled into the dust, breath broken, pride stripped from him like a torn garment. The man who once stood tall could not even speak. Strength alone had failed. Not long after, Onyeka stepped forward. Onyeka believed not in raw power, but in discipline, training, and control. He told himself that endurance could be learnt. He entered in Nelma's compound at dawn. 10 hours later, panic spread. Onyeka was carried out trembling and unconscious, rushed to the healer's hut. The village grew uneasy. This was no ordinary test. Then came Ikena, the man who once killed a lion and lived to tell the story. His scars were proof enough for his courage. He believed fear was the only real enemy, and he had conquered fear long ago. He entered without hesitation. By the 9th hour, silence wrapped the compound like a warning. When Ikena was finally brought out, he did not speak, he did not move. The man who had faced death had been defeated. Others tried, hunters, warriors, wealthy men, men with loud reputations and louder pride. All failed. Some limped away in shame. Some refused to talk about what happened. Some avoided Nelma's name entirely afterward. Still, she stood firm. She repeated her words to anyone who asked. Any man who could endure her ope for 24 hours would be her husband. Fear slowly replaced mockery. Men began to wonder whether Nelma was a curse, a test sent by the gods, or a mirror revealing what men truly were beneath their pride. Then, one evening, as the village settled into night, a stranger arrived from a nearby place. He did not look strong. His clothes were plain, his body unremarkable. He did not boast, did not laugh, did not challenge anyone. When he heard of a Nelma, he simply said he would try. The villagers mocked him, some pitied him, Some told him to go home before disgrace followed him. But Nelma looked at him differently. For the first time, her eyes softened. She opened her gate. The door closed behind them. When the gate closed behind the stranger, the village of Umwagu waited. At first, nothing felt different. The moon rose the way it always did, fires crackled in cooking pots, children were called indoors. But beneath the calm, a quiet tension spread like smoke. No one truly believed the stranger would last longer than the others. He did not carry the weight of reputation. He did not have a name that caused men to step aside. He was simply a man whose eyes had seen too much and learned silence from suffering. Inside the compound, Nelma studied him closely. She had seen many men before him, men who arrived puffed up with pride, men whose confidence collapsed at the first sign of resistance, men who believed endurance was the same thing as force. This one was different. He greeted her with respect, not hunger. His eyes did not roam her body like a prize to be claimed. They rested on her face, steady and calm. When the hours began to pass, something unusual happened. There was no struggle for dominance, no desperate rush, no attempt to conquer time through strength alone. The stranger approached the Opwe with patience, as one who understood that endurance was not about proving power, but about managing it. When fatigue whispered, he listened. When tension rose, he slowed. When the body demanded pride, he answered with restraint. Outside, the first 6 hours passed quietly. Villagers gathered at a distance, pretending not to care. Some sat with folded arms, waiting for the familiar sound of defeat. Others shook their heads, already convinced the outcome would not change. But the gate remained closed. By the 10th hour, murmurs began. By the 12th, the moon stood directly overhead, and the village grew restless. This had never happened before. No man had crossed into this stretch of time without collapsing. Inside, the stranger's breathing was steady. His movements were measured. He did not treat the Opwe as a battlefield. He treated it as a journey. When exhaustion pressed against him, memories answered back. Memories of hunger, of nights without shelter, of learning to endure pain without complaint after his parents died when he was only 6 years old. He remembered sleeping on their broken roofs, eating what survival allowed, and learning early that impatience was a luxury for the protected. Nelma watched him closely. She tested him not with force alone, but with silence, with pressure, with moments meant to awaken ego. Still, he did not boast. He did not rush. He did not lose himself. As dawn approached, the village held its breath. 14 hours, 16, 18. When the sun rose, women came out to fetch water and stopped mid-step. The gate was still closed. Children whispered. Elders shifted uneasily. This was no longer entertainment. It had become a mystery. Inside, the stranger's body showed fatigue, but his spirit remained unbroken. He rested when needed. He resumed when ready. Discipline guided every action. He did not confuse endurance with suffering, nor patience with weakness. By the 22nd hour, even the mockers had fallen silent. At the 24th hour, the gate opened. The stranger stepped out. He was tired, yes, but he stood upright. His eyes were clear. His body, though strained, carried no shame, no collapse, no defeat. Behind him, Nelma followed, wrapped in calm dignity. The village erupted. Men rushed forward. Women gasped. Elders leaned on their staffs in disbelief. Never had Umwagu seen such a thing. They asked him how he did it. They asked what power he possessed. They asked which spirit followed him. The stranger spoke softly, yet his words carried further than any shout. He said he had no special power. He said he had simply learned discipline early because life had given him no choice. He said patience had kept him alive when anger would have killed him. He said pride was heavy, and he learned long ago that survival required traveling light. He said when his parents died, hunger taught him restraint, pain taught him timing, loneliness taught him humility. And because he had mastered himself, no challenge could master him. The village fell silent again, this time not in shock, but in understanding. Nelma stepped forward. She told them the truth they had not wanted to hear. She said she never wanted the strongest man because strength without control destroys. She said she never wanted the loudest man because noise hides weakness. She said she wanted a man whose ego would not choke wisdom, a man whose patience could build wealth and whose discipline could sustain it. She said the Opwe was never about pleasure alone, it was a mirror, and every man who entered had seen himself clearly for the first time. The elders nodded. The marriage was announced, and soon after, the change began. The stranger, now Nelma's husband, did not rush into wealth. He applied the same discipline to farming, trade, and leadership. He listened more than he spoke. He planned before he acted. With Nelma beside him, fortune grew steadily, not recklessly. Their household became a place of abundance, not because of magic, but because wisdom guided every step. They became rich, not only in possessions, but in respect. Their wealth did not destroy them, it strengthened their community. They helped others without pride and gave without noise. And the village of Umwagu learned a lesson it would tell its children for generations. That strength alone is loud but short-lived. That ego burns faster than it builds. That discipline outlasts power. And that patience is the true endurance of a man. So, if this story spoke to you, if it taught you something about pride, patience, discipline, or life itself, like this story, comment what you learned and subscribe to the channel for more powerful African folktales that carry wisdom beyond entertainment.